Hey listeners, this month we're revisiting an important conversation about navigating the holiday season with one of our family caregivers, Antonea. She specifically shares her experience of the first holiday season after her caregiving role ended. We know this time of year can be particularly challenging, but we want to remind you that we are here to help. Connect with us at scrc.care or call 858-268-4432 to get important resources and support.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of SCRC Let's Talk Caregiving podcast. The purpose of today's podcast is to help stimulate discussion, bring awareness, and connect families to the services at Southern Caregiver Resource Center. I'm your host, Roberto Velazquez, Executive Director of SCRC, and I'm here as always with my co-host, Marta Rañón, Director of Government and Community Affairs.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So we also have today a special guest, Antonea Peterson, longtime caregiver and SCRC advocate.
Thank you so much for inviting me here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. So I want to welcome again, everybody. And today I want to talk, as always, about caregiving, the impact of family caregiving, but also talk about life after caregiving. You know, this topic is of interest as many family caregivers, while they're in their caregiver role, you know, they often have support from professionals or organizations, some family and friends. But what about after your role as a caregiver is over? What's next?
That's a great question, Roberto. And I think a topic that I know a lot of caregivers often mention in some of my classes because, you know, now what? I've been doing this for so long. It's been so intense, so hands-on. And now what?
Right.
I know that when I was a family caregiver, I, was really involved with my great aunt's care and I learned a lot and I really found myself wondering, okay, now what? Now that she's gone, what do I do with this knowledge? What do I do with this information? And that's one of the reasons why I became involved as a volunteer with Southern Caregiver Resource Center because I really wanted to continue helping other caregivers. So I know that's a lot of question. It's a familiar question that people have.
Yeah, and it's you're actually sort of pressured in some ways from friends, from family, fill that gap, fill up your time, go enjoy, come to our Christmas party during holiday seasons, and you might not always feel that way.
Well, I agree. And for myself, I have an amazing family and some really special friends. And they did come and try and fill my time with their loving care. And I have 4 boys and 3 amazing daughter-in-laws. I couldn't have raised better daughters, that's for sure. They basically took care of everything for my husband's memorial. And I didn't have to do a thing.
And that was very recent, correct?
That was just a few months ago.
Right.
And so here I am, and I have all the cards and all the well wishes, and then I'm at home by myself.
Right.
And I told people that, I've already mourned my sweetheart. I've already mourned him. And then when I was home by myself, thinking that I had already mourned him, I realized I didn't. I am now mourning my healthy sweetheart.
Right.
I'm mourning the healthy man that I no longer am going to be able to go places with and watch my grandchildren have fun with and I think watch them dance.
I'm so glad that you said that because I think that goes to that ambiguous loss. We talk as caregivers, sometimes that person's still there and we feel that the person that we knew is gone and now we're caring for this new person who is here in front of us. But then once that person is gone physically, we kind of reminisce and think about the person who was there before the illness or before needing all this care.
And I know this is, and it seems so unfair because as a caregiver, especially when you're caring for somebody with Alzheimer's or related dementia that's progressive and the individual's abilities are declining over time, you're mourning over time. And you're
Yes.
talking about this ambiguous loss.
Yeah.
You're mourning because your loved one's ability to do things to even, at the end, maybe even recognize who you are is gone. So all of that has a very deep impact, I think, on the individual who is the caregiver. Did you feel anything like that, Antonea, when you were caring for your husband?
Absolutely. I did.
Yeah.
Because he did not know who he was, much less I was. And he was a sweet man. I know I had it easy compared to a lot of people, but it's not like he was always sweet. It was not easy.
You had your challenges.
I did have my challenges. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it to the end, but we did. We fought the good fight and we made it to the end, and it was a sweet passing. It was. But at the end, after he was gone, I thought, wow, it's quiet in this house all by myself.
Yeah.
And my kids were really great. They said, hey, you want us to stick around? And I said, no, I'll be fine.
Right.
I'll be fine. And but it was quiet, and it took a long time, quite a few weeks to get used to the quiet and him not being right there, even unhealthy, but thinking of him as healthy.
Right. I know that it does take time from personal experience when we were caregiving. My brothers and sisters and I were caregiving for my mother who passed away a couple years ago. It was very challenging during the holiday seasons, for me particularly. I would put on music that I normally didn't listen to. But just because I knew it was music that my mom and my dad used to enjoy listening to. And oh boy, the waterworks, the emotion, the challenges. And,
it all comes back.
And I would be dressed and ready to go to my, to one of my brothers or sisters' homes to enjoy a big festive day and evening with food and drinks. But prior to me leaving that house, my eyes were full of tears and lots of memories. But, I felt it was really good to do that. I didn't avoid that scenario, which sometimes people do.
And I think it's sometimes, and everybody is different, but I think sometimes as caregivers, we put on this strong facade and kind of be strong for everybody, be strong for the person that we're caring for, and not allow us that time to grieve or to mourn or to even be sad and miss that person. Right. That is all normal and healthy part of dealing with our emotions. Validating those feelings is important. Perhaps, Antonea, you can share with us how you managed through those, especially right now that, we're, like Roberto said, getting into the holidays, because I know that a lot of times caregivers ask those questions. What do I do now? If I can, just kind of share a story. I remember doing a talk during this time, and a caregiver said, my wife used to love Christmas time, and she decorated everything, and she was in charge of putting everything together. And this year is the first time without her, and I don't want to do anything. I just don't want to do anything. It's too painful.
Well, my grandchildren love to talk about their pop-pop.
Love grandchildren. I have a granddaughter, and that's the love of my life.
And the day after their pop-pop passed away, they made a birthday cake. Kind of like, well, not a birthday cake, but a cake, a chocolate cake, because Pop-Pop loved chocolate.
Right.
And celebrated his first day in heaven.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yes.
That is very sweet. They
all hugged their Pop-Pop the last 5 days of his life, every day, to say goodbye. And the day after, they made him that cake to celebrate. And they sit around at when I give them their, a dinner, and they tell me, it's just not the same.
Mm-hmm.
It just isn't the same. And I said, it isn't the same, is it? And then they look and they go, I wonder what it's like around his table today in heaven. I wonder who he's sitting next to. I wonder what he gets to eat. Does he get to eat anything he wants? And then we start talking about what it's like for Pop Pop. And that's what I'm celebrating.
Yeah.
So it's really putting it into perspective in a different light.
Yes. They love talking about their Pop Pop. And they always talk about how he's right here with us for Christmas.
Right.
All the time.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's always wonderful to have those, it depends on your beliefs, of course, and things of that nature. But
Yes.
to have a happy story or happy memories, and even in this case, an idea of what might be happening and how he might be enjoying his afterlife, which is very comforting.
It is.
Right?
It so is.
Comforting, right? And I know, Antonea, you've expressed to me in the past that you're always this individual with a ball of energy, and you're always advocating for others and trying to help others figure out problems and helping them with whatever situation they might have. And you said as a caregiver, while you were a caregiver, that was a problem for you because you were trying to do it all for yourself. And that's what a lot of family caregivers go through. And how now that you're no longer physically caregiving for anybody except for yourself, are you kind of reverting back to the ball of energy who would do things for herself and before?
Well, I thought that when I had time for myself, I would be rushing out to the beach and walking.
And doing all those
and
things
doing
that you
all
wanted
those
to do.
things. And you know what? I did not. I just couldn't bring myself to go out and walk. And it took me some time to feel comfortable to do something for myself. It really did. I just didn't, I don't know if I felt guilty to have that time for myself.
Right.
I don't know, but
Or
I
maybe
didn't rush right out.
Or maybe it was just different too. You've been so used to not necessarily doing that maybe
I didn't want to leave the house.
Mm-hmm.
For 5 years, I kind of was in the house.
Right.
Or when I did leave, I took my sweetheart with me.
Right.
My mantra kind of was, it's going to be hard in the house, so I might as well go out of the house.
There's the
and
attitude.
I took him out, and it may be 10 minutes, but we were out of the house, and it was, the same hard. So we made it count. But.
And are you finding that with time, you're starting to do more things for yourself now?
I have friends that call on me and go, Antonea, it's time for a walk. Antonea, paddleboarding.
Yeah.
Antonea, pickleball. Antonea. And I don't say yes, but I say next month I'll be ready. And I did go paddleboarding.
Oh,
Good
fantastic.
for you.
I did.
Good for you. That is
So
fun.
Once.
So as people are listening in and maybe identifying with kind of this void in their life after they're no longer caring for their loved one, you're saying, with some time and with the right attitude, you'll start to do things for yourself. Because what you're really doing is you're re-identifying who you are. Because I think, if you've been a caregiver for 5-10 years, that becomes sort of your identity, doesn't it?
It does. Because I've had somebody with me for all that time, even though he was not healthy, he still was my other half, my sweetheart, my best friend. and we did everything together.
And I think that is why it's so important that caregivers recognize that we are here at Southern Caregiver Resource Center for them, because you need that respite. You need to take time for yourself so that you don't forget about who you are and what your interests are.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very noble thing to want to care for someone in that level of intensity, but also it's you can't really forget about you, and having that group of friends that is constantly calling you, and maybe you're a little annoyed by it at first, but it's really their that energy, that positivity that you might need to help you get back on track.
Absolutely. I have friends that text me and tell me, I love you.
That's so
I'm
nice.
thinking of you. Just periodically remind me.
Right.
I'm with you.
That's wonderful. I mean, and this is what I was talking about, earlier when we started off, is as a caregiver, you might have those friends and family that are providing that support. But you also have professionals, like if you were to reach out to Southern Caregiver Resource Center, which you did,
Yep.
and we were able to provide some of that support when things changed, when you weren't feeling strong, or when you were feeling doubt, or you just wanted to vent. And then you were able to take advantage of some of our respite services that gave you that opportunity to get out and start exercising and doing a few of the things that you've mentioned to me in the past. That's all, as Martha was saying, very important, because you do get so isolated and you kind of do lose your identity, and you stop actually taking care. Most caregivers stop taking care of themselves and start to suffer their own health consequences. And now you're no longer a caregiver. So it's time to rediscover that, although it's a lot harder than said, because it does take time.
It does. And I needed that time. It was those last few months before my husband passed away, I had no idea how important it was to have time for myself. And if it wasn't for those hours of respite that I received from, Southern Caregiver Resource Center, I would not be where I am recovering right now from my loss. And it was a big loss. So I'm able to move forward and recover. It's gonna take time.
Absolutely.
But
and we're here
it's an
for
important
you.
time.
And we're
Yeah.
here for you. And again, it makes me so happy to know that you knew to turn to someone for help, and that we were here to help you. I think sometimes as caregivers, we feel like we can do it all and we don't need the help, but it's good to get that little reminder.
And I have a pretty strong resolve to try and do things myself. And it took some time, but I realized, no, I can't do this myself. I need my family. They've been amazing, supportive, awesome, wonderful, always there. I need my friends.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do it without them as well. And I learned how to say, please, could you help me?
Right.
And I learned also that they want to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think that we're afraid to do, is ask for help.
Yes.
And that our friends want to help. They're just waiting for us to ask. And I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought, they are too busy. They have too much. And here they were waiting for me to ask. And I had no idea.
Yes.
Right.
And
It's
I
true.
think I've become closer to my family and my friends because of this, realizing that, hey, I'm not the strongest person on the block.
You're human.
I'm
Right.
human. Exactly.
Right.
And I've become a better person. My sweetheart helped me become a better person today because of what we went through together.
Right.
And I thank him.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you're here sharing your experience with us here at SCRC and our audience who listen in on this podcast. And I think it's a great message that families could hear, because I'm sure there's a lot of family members who now are no longer caregiving, or they're in the final stages of it, and they're going to need to know now what do I do with myself? And it's nice to hear that, for you, even though you've gone through that and you're still going through that, it does take time, but with the right kind of support, you're able to get out there and start doing things, but it might not be right away. Mm-hmm. And that's why we also tell people sometimes too, when they say, well, now I have all this time, I'm going to go volunteer, I'm going to go do this and that. Well, the reality is maybe you should slow down on that kind of stuff and just do some stuff for yourself first, because the grieving process could take a while and you could be, making a commitment and then not be able to fulfill it because you're wanting to volunteer or do other things, which we love, by the way, but you got to be good with yourself. And I'm glad you're taking the time to do that. And you're surrounding yourself with people who love you and who you love.
And we really do
Thank
appreciate
you
you being here and sharing your story, because I think sometimes it's caregivers need to hear it from other caregivers, especially having gone through all the things that you went through. And it's important. It validates them, and it really lets them know, hey, you're not alone. You're not the only one. There's people out there who are going through the same thing. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Well, thank you for being here for me and for others, because we all do need the help. We do. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, that's all the time we have left for this edition of Let's Talk Caregiving. I want to thank Martha for co-hosting again.
My pleasure.
And Antonea for sharing her stories for another stimulating discussion about caregiving. And I want to remind our audience that if you're providing support to a loved one, you don't have to do this alone. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. Just go to our website at scrc.care or call us at 1-800-827-1008. And remember, SCRC is here for you,
caring for those who care for others.
Thank you, everyone.